Thank you, Mr. Sampath. Good evening to you and good afternoon to South Africans in other parts of the world. Let me acknowledge Dr. Sampath, the Chief Minister of Pondicherry, Mr. Pravin Gordhan, I'm not sure if he's still on, Prime Minister Nagamuthu, Dr. Navi Pillay, and all the other distinguished speakers on the panel today, as well as distinguished ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends. It is often said that we must pause to enjoy the gifts of nature, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, the warmth of the sun, and the earth beneath our feet. But as South Africans, we add another gift of nature, a gift to South Africans and the world, Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela. Of course, he would be the first to reject any title or sainthood, so it was to be expected that immediately upon his release, in his first public address after 27 years of imprisonment, he said the following, and I quote, "I stand before you not as a prophet, but as the humble servant of you, the people," unquote. It is still difficult to comprehend that anyone, after such a long period of incarceration during the prime years of one's life, during which every effort was made to crush your spirit, when you are refused permission to attend the funeral of your son, that you emerge without any trace of bitterness to embrace the world and demonstrate that true leadership must be underpinned by a love of people, of humanity, and indeed of the world. It is therefore entirely appropriate that the Madras Development Society should seek to honor this towering giant of the 20th century. It is understandable that you should seek to link his historic contribution to the lives of Tamils who formed the majority of the indentured laborers who found themselves in South Africa. But let us make no mistake and immediately proclaim that Nelson Mandela's life and values was for all of humanity, breaking down all the walls that seek to divide us. We must always be bold enough to condemn and reject the ever-present danger of those who seek to proclaim some level of superiority by way of race, religion, or creed. And so there can be no debate about our position on all types of fundamentalism, whether they be Hindu, Islamic, or Christian. And we must do all in our power to accelerate the obliteration of the caste system. So this gathering is important not only because it honors one of the greatest statesmen of our time, but also because it shines the spotlight on the very important issue of peace and conflict resolution. More than ever before, the world needs insightful reflection on these topics. And I congratulate you, Dr. Sampath, because in the addresses that we've had thus far, we indeed have had insightful reflection on these topics. As a way of background, I would like to tell you briefly about KwaZulu-Natal, which is a state in South Africa, whose government I am part of. And I do this because I want to later draw on our experiences in the resolution of conflict. KwaZulu-Natal is one of 9 provinces that constitute South Africa. It is a province of diverse cultures, situated along the eastern part of the country and lapped by the warm Indian Ocean. It is in KwaZulu-Natal that thousands of Indian indentured laborers were shipped to over 5 decades, beginning in 1860. Many of them settled there permanently, and this is the reason why of all the provinces, KwaZulu-Natal has by far the highest concentration of South Africans of Indian descent. Currently, South Africans of Indian descent account for 1.5 million of the total South African population of 58 million. More than 2/3 of South Africans of Indian descent can be found in KwaZulu-Natal, where they constitute 8% of the province's population of 11.3 million people. And in KwaZulu-Natal, we've had our share of conflict, which I will deal with later. I am mentioning this history briefly so as to highlight the emotional and cultural connection that India and South Africa enjoy. And President Nelson Mandela put it succinctly during his visit to India in October 1990 when he said, and I quote, "The indentured laborers also serve to establish an umbilical cord that ties together the peoples of our respective countries. As much as India is a particle of our country, so are we too a particle of India. History has condemned us to seek each other out, to deal with each other as members of the same family, unquote. May I pause to reflect on and pay tribute to my fellow South Africans who share this platform today. I'm sure they would all, in one way or the other, regard themselves as children of Nelson Mandela. Judge Navanithan Pillay is an outstanding South African whose rise to serving as the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights from 2008 to 2014 was an inspiration to millions, including us in South Africa. No such rise would have been possible without an exemplary track record in the fight and the struggle against apartheid. Your award today, Madam, is well deserved. Praveen Jamnadas Gordon is a South African of Indian origin whose contribution is really quite unmatched. Over 50 years of struggle in post-apartheid democracy, he has fought the good fight and remained true to the vision of Mandela and Gandhi. His contribution covers several epochs during which he has been at the cutting edge of taking our struggle forward. And this contribution has included his role as a student leader, the building of the Natal Indian Congress into a formidable force, the civic movement, the United Democratic Movement, the Front, the African National Congress, the underground struggle, the negotiations for a democratic South Africa, which we call CODESA, as Commissioner for the South African Revenue Service, which he built into a world-class organization, and then as Minister of Finance, where he literally stood at the doors of National Treasury and single-handedly warded off scoundrels who sought to raid the nation's wealth and cause great misery for our people. Today, he is again, as Minister of Public Enterprises, tasked to rebuild key institutions which are vital for our future growth and prosperity. We salute Praveen Gordon. Earlier, I mentioned his full name, Praveen Jamnadas Gordon, for good reason. There are those in our country, not many, who would seek to use his middle name in a dangerous and derogatory way, and who will not hesitate to use the most outrageous lies to denigrate him and seek to reduce his moral authority. They have failed. Unfortunately, another South African of Indian origin, Satyadranath Raghunandan Mac Maharaj, could not join us today. It would have been most appropriate to have him address us as someone who would have known perhaps Nelson Mandela the best, having served 12 years in Robben Island with him and later as a member of Mandela's first cabinet and lifelong friend and comrade. Yesterday, we laid to rest Lieutenant General Vijay Nand Indrajit Ramlakhan, who rose to the top ranks of the South African National Defence Force. His funeral was an official state funeral with full military honors, broadcast live on national television. The prayer was performed by a Hindu priest of the South African Defence Force. Speaker after speaker acclaimed his sterling, courageous, and exemplary contribution in the struggle for freedom, including imprisonment on Robben Island, and his contribution to building our democratic South Africa. Vijay was completely South African, embracing all her people in equal measure. His daughter spoke of the joys of celebrating Diwali, now accepted as a natural part of our democratic society. Nelson Mandela, together with many others like Vijay Ramlakhan, made that possible. Comrade Vijay's life must be celebrated and motivate all of us to re-energize our historic activism in the interest of the public good. Our vision of a truly united, democratic, non-racial, non-sexist, and prosperous South Africa is not guaranteed. It has to be worked for. It has to be defended. There is again a need for the best and talented amongst us to bring forth their skills and claim their space in the task of building the capable state, strengthening our social compacts, and contributing to a rational policy debate on several key issues. Our economic framework and the post-COVID-19 economic recovery plan and its implementation now becomes our top priority. Nelson Mandela did not give us a democratic South Africa on a platter. He gave us the real possibility of building one, and so too for the world. Of course, Nelson Mandela's main contribution to the theme of peace and reconciliation was in the greater South African state. There are many examples of him using his leadership skills to overcome really dangerous hurdles on this journey. One such example was on the great tragedy of the murder of our most popular General Secretary of the South African Communist Party and NEC member of the ANC, Chris Hani, who many would say would have been a future president of our country. His death caused outrage and mobilized millions of followers whose anger had to be directed. We stood at the edge of a civil war that would have plunged our country into misery for decades to come. It was Nelson Mandela, not the then president after he declared, who had to go on national television and lead our people away from that ghastly prospect. Another instance closer to home for us in KwaZulu-Natal was a simmering conflict between Inkatha, led by Mangosuthu Buthelezi, and the ANC. More than 20,000 lives were lost in that conflict. Again, it was Nelson Mandela who led us away from our anger and short-sightedness to build a sustainable peace which still endures today. In his address to a rally in Durban on 25 February 1990, Nelson Mandela stated, and I quote, "In Natal, apartheid is a deadly cancer in our midst, setting house against house and eating away at the precious ties that bind us together. This strife among ourselves wastes our energy and destroys our unity. My message to those of you involved in this battle of brother against brother is this: take your guns, your knives, and your pangas and throw them into the sea. Close down the death factories. End this war now." He went on to say, "We also come together today to renew the ties that make us one people and to reaffirm a single united stand against the oppression of apartheid. We have gathered here to find a way of building even greater unity than we already have. Unity is the pillar and foundation of our struggle to end the misery which is caused by the oppression which is our greatest enemy. This repression and the violence it creates cannot be ended if we fight and attack each other," close quote. And yet there are scars that have not been completely healed. The impact on society as a whole and the trauma on individuals, families, and communities are issues for a democratic government and society as a whole, and must be dealt with in a visible and genuine way. There are other fault lines in our society: the legacy of the conscious, divisive, hierarchical nature of apartheid oppression. There is not yet enough common conversation about this and our future across the social and political spectrum. There are deeper issues beyond party politics, which need our attention. And in doing so, Nelson Mandela would remain our beacon. As far back as 1979, while still incarcerated, the Indian government conferred on Nelson Mandela the Jawaharlal Nehru Award for International Understanding for his outstanding contribution to the promotion of international understanding, goodwill, and friendship among peoples of the world. So South Africans generally, and especially Tamil people in South Africa, will be most inspired by the recognition in Tamil Nadu of our Nelson Mandela. We are, on the one hand, in awe of your ability in Tamil Nadu to overcome the legacy of colonialism and the inherent challenges of a multicultural society. Tamil Nadu, a state of some 70 million people, can hold its head high. Your achievement of the second largest economy among Indian states is significant. We envy your success in your industrialization program, and we want to learn from it. We marvel at the world-class development of your ICT sector, and we wish to emulate that. We believe that we too have skills and talent in our country. And yet, as has been said, both our countries have great underdevelopment and poverty. And this must remain our key preoccupation as we marshal all our resources towards achieving a just society, contributing to a better world as Nelson Mandela did. Today, India is a key player on the world stage. The size of the Indian economy is predicted to ultimately overtake that of both China and the USA. Tamil Nadu is a key state in India, And with that comes the great responsibility of contributing meaningfully to a better, safer, more equal world, a sustainable world that future generations will look back on with respect for our efforts. In conclusion, let me say that surely the ultimate message of Nelson Mandela's life must be that peace and reconciliation is only sustainable if underpinned by justice. I thank you, Nandri.